I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to tell a story like this, but here we are. Imagine coming home after a peaceful morning, thinking you finally had a place of your own, only to find strangers on your porch, telling you it's not yours anymore. That was the day my whole world spun off its axis. I'd spent 37 years working construction jobs, bouncing around the country, never staying long enough to put down roots. Then my uncle passed and left me his old place by the water. For the first time, I wanted to stop moving, to belong somewhere, to have walls that were mine. That little one-story brick house wasn't fancy, but it was sturdy, quiet, and honest. I poured myself into fixing it up, repainting, patching leaks, tightening hinges, the kind of work that heals you from the inside out. And for a couple of weeks, I thought I'd found peace. But peace doesn't last long when an HOA smells blood in the water. I noticed small things. At first, an SUV parked too long outside my gate. A woman in a gray suit standing on the gravel road, tapping away on a tablet, like she was surveying something that didn't belong to her. I waved, but she didn't wave back. I told myself I was being paranoid. It wasn't a movie. It was real life. Then one morning, after a few hours of fishing, I pulled into the driveway, grinning at 3 bass flopping in my bucket. The grin vanished fast. 2 black sedans with HOA stickers were parked by the porch. A police cruiser sat behind them, and that same woman was on the steps, talking on her phone like she owned the place. I didn't even make it through the gate before the cops stepped in front of me. "Sorry, sir, you can't go in there." I blinked like I'd misheard. "That's my house." The tall one checked a clipboard and told me as if it was routine that according to the latest records, the property had been declared abandoned and reassigned to the neighborhood HOA. I nearly laughed in his face. Abandoned, I'd been living there for 2 weeks. I offered to show them my deed, my ID, anything. That's when the woman finally spoke. She came down the steps in her blazer with a smile so smug it made my skin crawl. "Good morning, Mr. Collins, I presume. I'm Patricia Meyer, president of the Willow Ridge Homeowners Association. You failed to file the necessary occupancy forms, so the land was reassigned. This property is now under our jurisdiction." "Forms. This place isn't even in your neighborhood," I said. She shrugged, condescending. "That changed. Annexation request was processed. You weren't present to contest it." I could feel my pulse hammering. "So you're telling me I got evicted while I was out fishing?" She smiled. "Due diligence was observed. The notice was posted last Tuesday. I was here Tuesday. There was no notice." Her answer, then perhaps it fell off. My hands shook. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and tucked it back in my pocket. If they were going to steal my house, they'd do it on tape. "Show me the paperwork," I demanded. She handed me a single page with an HOA seal, vague words about protecting the community. No signatures, no court stamp, nothing legal about it. Still, the cops backed her. I begged for my documents. Finally, they let me in for 5 minutes with an escort. I ran straight to my desk drawer. Empty. My deed, my uncle's will, the notarized affidavit, all gone. I lost it. I called them thieves, frauds, every word I could summon. Within seconds, I was cuffed, dragged to the cruiser, and charged with disorderly conduct. Patricia stood there watching like it was a parade. By the time they released me that night, I was broke tired with no truck, no keys, and no roof over my head. I sat on the curb outside the station and promised myself one thing: this wasn't over. I called my buddy Mark, told him everything. He let out a low whistle and said, "They boxed you in, man. But I know someone who can help my granddad, Henry Doyle. Old farmer, tough as nails. HOA tried to snatch his land years ago. He buried them in court. I scraped enough cash for a ride and showed up at Henry's ranch as the sun was bleeding out of the sky. He met me on the porch, arms crossed, denim shirt rolled at the sleeves. He didn't even say hello, just looked me up and down. "You look like hell. Feel worse." He let me in. The place smelled like pipe smoke and fried food. Over coffee, I laid out the whole story. He nodded slowly, eyes sharp under heavy lids. They tried the same on me. Called part of my ranch unclaimed. I stopped them by moving faster than they could build their walls. That's what you gotta do, hit them before they lock you out for good. Next morning, Henry drove us to the notary's office that had handled my uncle's estate. The receptionist, barely 20, said Hastings had retired and the file had been flagged for deletion days earlier, marked as duplicate. The request came stamped with Willow Ridge HOA's seal. They'd forged it. Henry leaned close, voice low and dangerous. "We need every backup you've got, paper, digital, anything." She gave us a flash drive with scraps of the deed. It was enough. Henry took me to a lawyer he knew, a woman named Valerie Grant. She was sharp, no nonsense, with a wall of framed clippings from cases she'd won. She plugged in the drive, looked over the files, and said, "They abused the Municipal Stewardship Act. They claimed your property was abandoned before you moved in. That's fraud. We file emergency reinstatement today." I handed her the recording on my phone. She listened, smirked, and said, "That's gold. This is going to court." But the HOA wasn't slowing down. That afternoon, I found 2 contractors on my lawn trying to take my door off with a crowbar. I screamed, jumped the fence, and called the sheriff. Real deputies arrived, reviewed my reinstatement papers and Valerie's cease and desist order. The contractors left pale and shaky. But that night, the HOA hit back with a doctored video, me screaming, edited to sound like I was threatening to burn the place down. Within hours, the neighborhood Facebook group was filled with comments calling me unstable, a squatter, dangerous. My blood boiled. Valerie told me to hold steady. "We'll prove it's fake," she said, "but we also need to crack their armor." That's where Henry came in. He called his friend Dale, a retired accountant, with a face no one would ever suspect. Dale donated $15,000 to the HOA. The money went straight into a shell company under Patricia's brother. The project was for eco-friendly lanterns in a park that didn't exist. Embezzlement on paper clear as day. Valerie lit up when she saw the trail. They just bought themselves criminal charges. Around the same time, a board member quit, suddenly citing personal ethics. Then a burner email arrived. "They've done this before. I have proof. I want out." The walls were cracking. When the court day came, it felt like a war zone. Valerie laid out every step: my uncle's death, the forged override, Patricia's smug line caught on tape. "Everything's been decided." She presented the forensics breakdown of the fake video, the embezzlement trail, and finally, the surprise witness, the young cop who had cuffed me. He testified under immunity that Patricia had personally handed him the removal order, not the sheriff's office. The judge's brow furrowed deeper with every word. Then Valerie cited an old 1960s case where the court struck down the exact same trick. Predatory and unconstitutional, the ruling had said. The judge looked straight at Patricia and repeated those words. Her face drained of color. By the time the gavel fell, the HOA's assets were frozen. A state investigation was opened, and Patricia walked out with her lawyer whispering furiously in her ear. The fallout was explosive. News trucks camped outside Henry's ranch. My face splashed across the local channel with the headline, "Homeowner Exposes HOA Scheme." I was no longer the squatter or the lunatic. I was the guy who stood up. Patricia tried to fight back with a countersuit claiming I falsified documents, but more whistleblowers came forward with recordings, memos, even a voicemail of her saying, "Make sure the cameras miss the eviction. We don't need more optics." The county assessor's office uncovered a whole racket properties devalued and flipped for profit after fraudulent annexations. The district attorney moved in. Patricia was arrested for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Her brother went down with her. The HOA was dissolved under emergency state supervision. A week later, I stood in my house again. It was torn up furniture, scattered doors broken, but it was mine. Henry handed me a hammer and a beer, and we started fixing what we could. I nailed a fresh sign to the oak tree by the driveway, private property, not part of HOA. Below it, another. In memory of Robert Collins, the last honest man. Valerie stopped by and gave me the court's restitution package, $2.5 million, paid out from HOA liquidation. I didn't even know what to do with that kind of money. She grinned. "Start with fixing the porch. Henry told me something I'll never forget. They wanted your land because it was the last piece of the lake. If they'd gotten it, the whole peninsula would have turned into condos. You didn't just save your house. You saved this town's soul." That night, I finally slept in my own bed again. The silence felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was mine, solid, stubborn, like my uncle's note I'd found tucked inside one of his old books, "Be stubborn. If the truth's on your side, that's enough." And maybe that's what I learned. You don't beat people like Patricia by yelling louder. You beat them by standing your ground piece of paper by piece of paper until their empire crumbles. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, coming home to strangers, claiming your house cops, telling you to walk away, what would you have done? Would you have fought, or would you have let it go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear every angle. And if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, share your story. Let's shine a light on how far they'll go and maybe remind them they don't own everything.